One of the things the GLP criticized the then administration is that economies around the world then were growing at 4 and 5%, while Jamaica was only growing 1% and 2%. Was that true?
Well, let us not pursue the argument like what is different now?
Because
what is different now in terms of growth?
Well, no, we're growing now by 0.8%.
Bless up my people. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And in this one, my people, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that his government will scale back the number of new immigrants allowed into the country in response to criticism over unbalanced post-COVID-19 pandemic immigration policies. Originally, they planned to admit 500,000 new permanent residents annually over the next 2 years. Now Trudeau now targets 395,000 in 2025 with further reductions to 380 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027. Justin Trudeau says this pause is intended to manage population growth and give the economy time to stabilize. We're bringing in the stricter rules for companies to prove why they can't hire Canadian workers first. And basically, I put that in place, my people, for look out for them people. You understand? But some of those work, especially the farm work, where them go out into the fields and pick this and that, whether it be fruits, whether it be vegetables, enough of the Canadians, enough of the people who were born in those countries don't want to do those type of work. And as much as though it's sad to say, when we know say enough families are going to be affected by this, my people, these are the prosperity that was voted for. And so right now, we have to stay in the prosperity. Canada now accept that 500,000 person that they wanted for each year. But them have stricter rules right now. And so following that news, we've seen a Jamaican American immigration attorney, Dahlia Walker Huntington, basically chime in with people. And she was basically saying that Canada's recent decision to reduce immigration and temporary foreign worker approval is expected to have significant economic impacts for many Jamaicans. She quoted that our economy is so tied to the diaspora, it will have a macro impact depending on how big it is, and it will certainly have a micro impact because there are families whose financial existence is tied to their family overseas. And that is so true, my people. A whole heap of people go up on the whole farm work for, work for that 6 months, saving up a lot and come back and sort out them families. And so the fact that that will decrease, my people, is going to have a direct impact on families and their ability to cover them essentials such as rent, school fees, and you name it.
Who are seeking to lead the country now, they benefited. When I said that they benefited, they became millionaires and billionaires on the backs of the people. When they carried an economic policy called the high interest rate policy, which helped to drive up the debt.
When you left as Finance Minister, Dr. Davis, what position was the Jamaican economy in?
Well, what is amazing is that the foreign exchange market was stable. The inflation was like about 5%. There were all set of positives. And one of the ironies is that the multilaterals praised our handling of the financial sector problem, crisis.
But this present Prime Minister is saying that you and the most honorable PJ Patterson destroyed the Jamaican economy in the 90s.
Yes. But I assume that the population will understand his desperation in trying to regurgitate that, because it's not true. And many of the perpetrators are people who are strong supporters of his party.
Mm-hmm. You brought the FSC in place after finding out the whole issue of the meltdown. Tell my listeners and viewers, what were the FSC put in place to do directly? What were some of their responsibilities?
Well, in a sense, the FSC was established to do for non-deposit taking institutions what the Bank of Jamaica was doing for deposit taking institutions. And so there was a separation of the activities, because one of the problems which limited the Bank of Jamaica's ability to carry out its supervisory activities was the extent to which, if you had a group of companies, you could move funds around or appearance of moving funds around. Sometimes there are no real funds. And so the FS, by segmenting and differentiating deposit-taking institutions from those which were managing investments, etc., you provided a greater concentration of effort on a specific problem. One of the things which I've not studied it long enough, but I don't know if it's a good idea, is to give put all of this under one institution, like the Bank of Jamaica. Because if there's a problem with FSC, then that's not necessarily the best solution.
Mm-hmm. One of the things the GLP criticized the then administration is that economies around the world then were growing at 4% and 5%, while Jamaica was only growing 1% and 2%. Was that true?
Well, let us not pursue the argument by what is different now.
Because
what is different now in terms of growth?
Well, no, we're growing now by 0.8%.
Yeah, but that's what's different. The other thing is, when they speak about this high interest rates, there are similar financial sector challenges in countries with low interest. In Japan and in Europe, there are similar situations. So if people are crooked and out to do harm, they will do it regardless of the situation. I'm not defending the sustained interest rates,
mm-hmm.
but I'm just telling you that to try to blame the 2 points. One is that there are instances of similar situations in low interest rate economies.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, and I urge people to do this because the credit unions have made that point to me repeatedly. How come we didn't have any of those problems? And one of the reasons is that the decision making and the supervision of like the credit union movement
mm-hmm.
is democratic, in that the annual general meeting, people actually take part in it and have a say. That's not so with the private institutions, in particular those which had executive chairman.
Dr. Davis, but when we talk about the 90s, one of the great things that I think happened, and I don't hear people giving you any credit for it, are the most honorable PJ Patterson, the fact that we left the IMF. How significant was that?
Well, it was significant for several reasons. It showed that we could design our own program. And you are asking about what's happened in terms of the economy prior to my departure. in that we demonstrated that it was possible to achieve objectives jointly agreed with the IMF without seeking to borrow from them. It was a very significant achievement at that stage. Unfortunately, the momentum which we had generated was not maintained, and very soon we had to return to the IMF.
Was that a mistake returning? Was it a mistake returning to the IMF?
Well, that was a result of what had happened. But unless you would have to take on these to change or continue the tight management which we had instituted, which allowed us to leave.